So you've heard mention of collective bargaining quite a lot while we were chatting and explaining about trade unions, employer organizations, and the basics of the Labor Relations Act. So what exactly is collective bargaining? Because it's a term that's going to come up a lot in this section of labor relations. So collective is another word for a group, when a whole bunch of people get together. That's what collective means, a group. Bargaining is when you negotiate and bargain between people to come to some kind of solution. So basically, collective bargaining means that you are negotiating with the power of a group behind you. Collective bargaining is a process when the employer and the employees, represented by the trade union, discuss issues of concern in order to resolve conflict and to reach an agreement. So they communicate, they negotiate, and they try and come to a solution. So it's the trade union reps on behalf of the employees and the employers. Trade unions give employees enhanced bargaining power, because if you think about it, if you alone as a worker has an issue, you're not going to get very far in the negotiation or the bargaining process. However, if a whole lot of employees get together, or you have the employer, trade unions helping on your behalf and bargaining for you, they have a lot more power. So the employer can then negotiate with one body, the trade union, instead of a whole lot of different employees. Once an agreement is reached, so when the trade union and the employer are busy bargaining and trying to come to a solution, when they reach a solution or an agreement, they sign a document called a collective agreement, because it is an agreement reached by a group. Centralized collective bargaining is when employees in a sector, so in other words, all the mining industry employers, or all the forestry industry employees, so or all the retail industry, so in an entire sector or industry, they join forces, all the employers, and they negotiate with the unions. So that's when centralized collective bargaining. A bargaining council is formed by trade unions and employer organizations for the sector, and you've got to have enough employers and employees representing in a bargaining council, because agreements reached in the council will apply to everybody in that sector. Should an employee not wish to be part of the agreement, or if he or she feels that they're going to be disadvantaged by the new agreement, they can apply to be exempted. So we have collective bargaining where groups come together to bargain and negotiate, and that is done through a bargaining council. So the main functions of the bargaining council is to determine wages, benefits, grievances, terms and conditions of employment, submit proposals for industry policy, resolve labor disputes, and establish education and training schemes for a particular industry. We have 3 collective bargaining structures. They can appear as a bargaining council, a statutory council, or a workplace forum. If we have a look at this diagram, it shows you the difference between the 3. A bargaining council helps establish collective agreements for a particular sector or industry, such as the mining industry or the education sector. A statutory council is where agreements reached in the sectors have to have the approval of the Minister of Labour. So in other words, it might be because it's changing a law, okay, or amending a some of the labor legislation. And then the workplace forum actually takes place in the business, in the workplace. It helps with grassroots level labor relations. It shifts the focus to joint decision making. You have to have 100 or more employees in your workplace, in your business, in order to have a workplace forum. And in these workplace forums, the employees can discuss things like health and safety, retrenchments, job grading, criteria for bonuses, education and training, and therefore take their opinions, their issues, their suggestions forward to management. If there is a dispute between the workplace forum, in other words, the employees in the workplace and the forum that they're discussing in, and the employer himself or herself, the dispute can then be referred to the CCMA. The CCMA is something we will be discussing in a lot more detail as well. The CCMA is the Council for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration. It's a third-party organization that helps in dispute resolution. Employees can also access these structures as part of the grievance procedure, and we'll be looking at grievances just now. And the role of unions is carried out through participating in collective bargaining. If you cannot resolve it at the collective bargaining stage, then you follow the process of conciliation, mediation, and then finally arbitration. As a last resort, the Labour Relations Act allows the trade union to organize strikes or other industrial action to force an employer to negotiate or settle a dispute. So if there are disputes, issues, disagreements in the workplace, usually the workers get together if there's a workplace forum and discuss the issues, and hopefully you can negotiate with the employer and come to some solution. If not, they can get their trade union representative involved, and then the trade unions will take it further to go to a bargaining or statutory council and bargain with the employer on behalf of the employees. And if that still cannot solve the issues, then you follow the course of the CCMA.